Welcome our first guest in this morning. Scott Sands joins us, longtime radio host at the national level, the regional level, the state level. He is based in Ohio, but I was looking at Scott's Twitter profile where you can kind of put a location. He's got Ohio, West Virginia, Michigan, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, Indiana, and California. He's been everywhere, man. Scott, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Richard, it's great to be on with you. It's great to be back on the radio in my home state of Mississippi, and it's an honor to be here on the Gallo slot. He's certainly a voice to be missed in the area.
No question about that. Dominating the news coverage this morning, of course, is the tragic crash last night in Washington, D.C. between a Black Hawk helicopter and a regional CRJ 700 jet that was an American Airlines flight that was operated by PSA, but if you've ever flown into Washington, D.C., you know that is one of the more unique approaches to a runway that you will ever find as you kind of go along the Potomac River and then land into that relatively short runway. Unfortunately, the news just not good and unlikely to find any survivors.
What a tragic day, and our prayers are obviously with all the families affected by this tragedy. And it's a heck of a first day on the job for Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy today.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the important things to talk about that, because you've got the backdrop of these confirmation hearings that are happening in the Senate, and in some ways what a clown show some of those have been outside of Marco Rubio's confirmation, which was unanimous. I didn't know that you could get 100 people in Washington to agree on anything, but they did on Marco Rubio. But some of these other confirmation hearings are really starting to kind of drag out. Three really important ones that are going to be happening today. Feels like in a lot of ways this tragedy kind of underscores, though, the importance of getting this done quickly.
And it's going to be interesting to watch the coverage of Tulsi Gabbard and Kash Patel today. Obviously, those are going to be two of the more contentious confirmation hearings, and senators love to steal the spotlight and get some video clicks for their social media, but that's going to be overshadowed today by coverage of the plane crash in D.C., so I wonder how that's going to proceed, if it's going to be as contentious. Certainly a storyline to watch today.
Did you think the tone changes at all in these hearings, given the backdrop of this plane crash? Probably not.
Absolutely not. Have you watched D.C. at all?
Warren is going to Elizabeth Warren.
Right. It's I'm not sure if she's on one of these committees for today, but no, I don't think the tone in D.C. is going to change because of this tragedy. I wish it was. And if you've been on social media at all this morning, you can see that the finger pointing has already begun. The conspiracy theorists are out in full force. I think this tragedy may only contribute to the climate in D.C. today.
Yeah, and it's crazy when you look at this, because there's so many questions that we have, the government officials have, that people in general have about, okay, what happened, why did it happen, and in this time where we want all of the information and we want it right now, and sometimes we're not necessarily that worried about the accuracy of it, it's going to take a little bit of time as the NTSB goes through its investigation. We get updates from local officials and politicians that feel the need to jump in front of the microphone as well.
Yeah, I think because of the age of social media that we're in today, television shows that are able to solve problems in less than an hour, and the immediacy of social media information, and not that I'm would like to see more censorship of misinformation or disinformation on social media, but a lot of wrong information gets shared and reshared so quickly that rumors are able to spread easily.
Visiting with Scott Sands. He is the host of the Scott Sands Show, national radio host, and kind enough to spend some time with us this morning. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You are a native Mississippian that has moved around a good bit, has worked in a lot of different parts of the radio media world.
Spent a lot of time on the radio in Hattiesburg, Laurel, on the Gulf Coast. Went to high school in Gulfport at St. John High School. Go Eagles! Now St. Patrick, but originally from Alabama. And I know you're an Ole Miss guy, but I'm an Alabama Crimson Tide fan. So I'm not sure how that's going to fit in with the SuperTalk Mississippi audience if I say Roll Tide. But I do love the person that Lane Kiffin has become. And I think it's easier to be an Alabama fan in Mississippi than it has been in Ohio State, Michigan territory here in the Big Ten.
Can certainly understand that. So Ohio State just winning a national championship. You had a pretty interesting interview not too terribly long ago with the Vice President, J.D. Vance, and you guys shared some stories about Alabama and Ohio State meeting in a national championship game, right?
We did. That allowed us to have some non-political conversations over the last few years. First met J.D. when he was running for Senate here in Ohio. And was not immediately a fan of his. I had actually preferred one of his primary challengers, but JD quickly won me over during that Senate campaign.
He is such an interesting story and an interesting person. I think the first impression I get about him, despite the fact that he's now the vice president and he is a best-selling author and has got a law degree from Ivy League. He seems like a really normal guy. Smart guy, but really normal.
He's very, very normal and just a great American success story. And I think the two main storylines when you look at J.D. Vance are the fact that he grew up in a challenging home environment and was able to turn his life around. But also the other political storyline has to be his change of heart, change of opinion about Donald Trump and how he went from being a very outspoken critic of Donald Trump prior to a Senate campaign to being on the ticket and becoming vice president.
One of the things that has fascinated me over the first few days of this new administration is the way various members of the administration have handled the media and have handled questions. We've gone through 4 years of KJP in the press room and President Biden rarely taking questions. And when he did, it felt like it was a bit of a disaster to, Caroline Leavitt making her debut as the press secretary a couple of days ago and getting just glowing reviews from
did a terrific job.
Depending on who you ask. Now there are a few. I mean, AOC jumps out and talks about how bad she was, but it's like, okay, what were you watching? Because it felt like it was a little bit different. But it's not just Caroline Leavitt. It's Stephen Miller when he steps to the microphone, and it's J.D. Vance. And I was struck by the interview with Margaret Brennan on Sunday morning with J.D. Vance, just how calm he was in what was clearly an attempt at some gotcha moments in that interview.
He is certainly an articulate spokesperson for the Trump administration, as is Caroline Leavitt. But the way this administration is going to produce so many viral and meme moments over the next 4 years. Just immediately, the "I don't really care" Margaret meme that was shared hundreds of thousands of times just took off virally.
It took me to Christmas Vacation when Todd and Margot were frustrated, and you got "I don't care" Margot, and this is the 2025 version. "I don't really care" Margaret. Yeah, that one.
I heard you talking about that the other morning. Yeah, I heard you mentioned that the other morning, and even just the side eye during the vice presidential debate with Kamala Harris was also a great viral moment for him.
Very comfortable in his own skin, or seems to be, and also comfortable in his positions. He has, as you mentioned, had to overcome what is a little bit of a political flip-flop, but I don't think there's any question where his loyalties lie. And the speed at which this new administration has come out of the gates, right? I mean, so different from 8 years ago when this new Trump administration was kind of trying to figure things out. It's something that you've seen over and over online. Promises made, promises kept. Donald Trump and his administration said, this is what we're going to do. And then people are kind of acting surprised when they have come out of the gates and done it.
Well, and the opposition loves to challenge every move that he makes, but the speed and the number of actions that he has made over the past week and a half, it's hard for the Democrats to keep up and know what to be outraged about at any given moment. By the time they're able to issue a statement or go on social media outraged about one thing, 10 other executive orders or actions or statements have come out since then.
This is the Gallo Radio Show, SuperTalk, Mississippi. We're visiting with Scott Sands. He is national radio host based in Toledo, Ohio, which is, my Ohio geography, southwest corner of the state, right?
We're a southern suburb of Detroit, basically.
There you go. You good to hang with us for a few more minutes?
Sure, absolutely. Love to.
I'm going to take a quick time out. We'll continue the conversation with Scott Sands, host of the Scott Sands Show. This is SuperTalk Mississippi. You want to be a part of the conversation, you can join us. 601-879-4395. Give your business the edge with gigabit fiber internet from C Spire. That's 601-879-4395. Back with more with Scott Sands on the other side of this timeout. 395. This just in. Scott Sands, nice guy. He didn't want to correct me on my geography flub. He said, well, southern suburb of Detroit. Northwest Ohio, not Southwest Ohio. I had the right side of the state.
You talk about time flying. And as you talk about time flying, it feels like it's January 97th today.
Yeah, it really does. It was funny. We were talking about it in the afternoon earlier this week. I'm like, has January gone by really fast, or has this been the longest month ever? It's crazy that we're almost to February, but there is a lot that has happened in the last 30 days. It's been a busy couple of weeks, especially. The fire chief in Washington, D.C., in a press conference just a little while ago, officially saying what everyone has assumed but hoped was not going to be the case. There are no expected survivors in that collision last night between the Black Hawk helicopter and that regional flight that was bound for Reagan from Wichita last night. Just a horrific tragedy here in the United States. I guess I'd kind of lost track of time. It surprised me a little that this is the first major commercial airline crash in the United States in 16 years. 2009, the last time we dealt with one of these scenarios.
I forget the exact number I saw on social media this morning, but there are so many people who have a fear of flying. But when you look at the safety record here in the United States, it's actually quite astounding. I believe something like 51 million, maybe more than that, flights have happened since the last major airline crash in the U.S.
That's it really is incredible. We are separated geographically, Northwest Ohio and the state of Mississippi. You have lived, obviously, in both places. We talked about the fact that you spent a lot of time on the radio in Hattiesburg and Laurel and in coastal Mississippi. Toledo is I've spent a small amount of time in Toledo and in Defiance, Ohio, about 45 miles or so to the southwest of Toledo. Right. And I was struck by how that part of the country, in a lot of ways, feels very similar to Mississippi. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. It's one of the reasons why I've loved living here the last 10 years. Spent some time in Indianapolis and Vigo. And Toledo is a small town with a lot of things to do and a close proximity to big cities like Detroit and Cleveland, Indianapolis, Cincinnati. So it's really in the center of major metropolitan areas. But for a small town, we have a lot of sports with the Toledo Mud Hens, world famous Mud Hens minor league ball team, ECHL hockey with the Toledo Walleye, and obviously a lot of great football in the area too with the MAC team, the Toledo Rockets, and the rest of the Big Ten teams that I don't like to talk about.
But you don't really have a choice when you think about the location of where you are. It's funny. But I
do love to stir the pot talking about Ohio State and Michigan and Michigan's cheating scandals.
Well, you're in Ohio, which everybody just okay. That's Ohio State country, but you're way closer to Ann Arbor, where Michigan is, than Columbus, where Ohio State is.
We are smack dab in the middle, and there's probably an equal number of Michigan and Ohio State fans in this area. Toledo actually used to be a part of Michigan, and there was a whole war or battle that took place on who would get the city of Toledo, and I'm not sure who the real winner in that was.
Visiting with Scott Sands this morning. As we look at these confirmation hearings that are going on, so far President Trump's nominees have been confirmed, but maybe the most contentious hearings coming up with Kash Patel and with Tulsi Gabbard. Ultimately, does this get done?
And even RFK Jr.
No question about that. And you've got Republican senators who have either announced they are dissenting or feel like they are going to. Does President Trump end up with a clean sweep on his nominees, or is there going to be one or two? Are there going to be one or two that end up not being confirmed?
You know, I'm 50-50 on this, and I don't know if you go on the betting markets like Kalshi and Poly Market. I enjoy watching those. I think it's possible for President Trump to get a clean sweep, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if at least one of these three fails the confirmation hearing. So I think that the Democrats would like to get a win, and they're getting some help from 2-3 Republican senators who have been squishy on some of these nominations. So it wouldn't surprise me if at least one fails, but I think there's a pretty good chance that he gets all three.
Saw a report last night that Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, Mitch McConnell from Kentucky, perhaps will not support RFK Jr.'s nomination and the vote. It struck me as, okay, these are two states that are solidly red, voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump, and yet the senators elected from those states maybe not willing to support Trump's cabinet pick for HHS. I'm not sure how you justify that when you talk with your constituents at home.
And it's been interesting to watch both of those senators, both Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham, who have been very supportive of Donald Trump on certain issues in the past. When you look at Lindsey Graham's record on national security, when you look at what Mitch McConnell did, and I don't think he gets enough credit for the judiciary that we have in America right now during President Trump's first term. And the political ramifications are obvious with Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell at the end of his career. We've already seen Nicole Shanahan, who was RFK Jr.'s vice presidential pick, talk about funding any primary challenger to a senator who opposes one of Trump's picks, especially RFK Jr.
She is a billionaire and was very outspoken and even tearful yesterday when she said,
I've tried to slide into her DMs to see if she should be my sugar mama. She's got a lot of money.
Yeah. A lot. But when someone like that comes out and says, I will personally fund the campaigns to primary these people, I think it carries a little bit of weight. Now, there are a lot of people that have a lot of money that give to political causes. Does that work in this case?
It might. I think the key to success in politics is certainly money. We see that with a lot of incumbents. It was interesting to watch the RFK Jr. hearings yesterday and the questions that RFK received about challenging Big Pharma coming from senators who receive the most political contributions from Big Pharma, which I think says a lot about the true influence behind the scenes of American politics today.
You may have seen that chart floating around this morning that gives some specific donation amounts of senators and the amount of money they have received from pharmaceutical companies. It really is staggering. Bernie Sanders at the top of the list at nearly $2 million in big pharma money received, followed closely by Raphael Warnock from Georgia, Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts. I know we're all shocked to see her name on this list. This is an uncomfortable time for those pharmaceutical companies who have a lot of power and a lot of money and a lot of elected officials seemingly in their back pockets.
Well, and the Senator Warnock contribution amount and challenge to RFK Jr. is especially ironic considering the influence that Nicole Shanahan had in getting him elected during the special election.
It really, really is incredible. Just a couple of minutes left with Scott Sands as we wrap up the conversation. He is a host of the Scott Sands Show, national radio host, has worked in radio all across the United States over, 20-ish years? Is that about right?
Yeah, let's just say 20. Let's just say 20. I don't want to sound as old as I may be.
You know, it's funny. I think I feel young. Most days I feel young, and then I kind of look at, okay, how long have I been doing this now? And it's like, okay, this has been a while. I'm not as young as I once was. The breakneck pace at which this Trump administration has operated for now, 10 days since the inauguration. Can they keep this pace up?
I think they will, at least in the short term. I think President Trump wants to check off as many boxes as he can in the first 100 days to show some success. And as I alluded to in the last segment, I think that this pace and the planning that has gone into his first 100 days makes it hard for Democrats to be able to challenge everything. I don't think President Trump will get every win that he wants, and I think there will certainly be some legal challenges that he loses. But the more he can get out there quickly, I think the better off it is for him and creating that perception. And we're seeing that in his approval numbers. But obviously the most important thing, in my opinion, is getting the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act renewed or extended permanently, and getting some more border funding done. This is going to be a big budget bill that comes through.
And yes, Scott, one of the things that we talked about a lot between Election Day and Inauguration Day was, okay, you got the House, you got the Senate, you got the popular vote, you got the White House, now you have to govern. And it's not that there's 4 years to get this done. There's 2 years until midterms, which means campaigning for midterms is going to start in a year. It has to happen fast.
Absolutely. It's been great being on with you, Richard. Roll Tide.
Oh, jeez. Scott Sands.
On again.
You're going to hear more of his voice, nauseating as it may be, as we go forward. Scott, thanks so much. It's good to be with you this morning. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, take care.
More of the Gallo Radio Show coming up after this on SuperTalk Mississippi.